Hey everyone, it's Jess from the Kidney RD. Thank you for those that are joining us today. We have a special guest coming in here to talk a little bit about counseling. So this is a really special person that I've known, I can say, my entire life. So this is Tyrene. You may notice we have a similar middle name, and that's because she is my oldest sister. Tyrene has been my secret weapon for many years. When I've run across tough counseling situations, I've called her up and been like, hey, like, I don't know what to do with this thing or that thing, or, you know, whatever, like, can you help guide me through it? Because she is a professional counselor with a lot of gifts. And after a while, I was like, man, I really need to share some of these gems that I'm learning with some of the other dietitians, because I think it could really help them in whatever their capacity is. So I have her on here today to share with us a few things, and then we also are going to share just a little bit about the course we have coming up, and a little bit about how that came to be. So Tyrene Hartsell, thank you for coming on today. We're really glad to have you.
Yeah, I'm excited to be here. I'm not sure what to think about your introduction, since you really emphasize that word oldest, the oldest sister, but it's really fun to be here.
Cool. So Tyrene, maybe give us just a little bit of your background and why you feel like for you counseling is one of your gifts, because I do think that is one of your gifts, and I could say that having known you well, but you know, like, why is that one of your gifts, and how have you used that to help people?
Yeah, I have to tell you, honestly, my whole life I've had such an interest in people in general. I really believe that people have all a lot of value, and they all have different kinds of gifts. Even people that we look at and we're like, wonder what their gift is, right? But everybody has some value. And I find as I have gone through my life, counseling has been such a natural fit because I have that interest in people, and I'm always interested to see what they have to offer. Of course, we all have challenges too, and those are really interesting also to watch. But as humans and human nature, we all have a desire to grow and to be different. And I love seeing that come out in people. I love seeing when they can change a mindset or make a change. And so that's always been a fascination of mine, you know, going throughout my life and in my counseling career.
I think one of the most rewarding things as dietitians is seeing people make those changes that we know are helpful, and they're excited about making those changes. And so that, for me, that's one of the things that, you know, like, just makes me love my job. So we all have to counsel, all of us, every day. That's a huge part of being a dietitian. We are teachers, we are counselors, and, you know, there can be a love-hate relationship with that. So just on your perspective, your job 100% full-time is counseling. So how do you find like a love of counseling in your job? And is there anything in your job that you just kind of, you don't look forward to, and how do you get over that hump of the situations you don't like?
Well, I mean, the people focus makes it what I love. You know, there's obviously things I don't love, which you could probably say in a dietitian's role too, like paperwork. And we don't love when we see somebody in a place of pain. And I would say for me as a counselor, one of the biggest challenges is seeing someone daily in a place of pain or difficulty or challenge, and knowing how to, I guess, professionally deflect that when I need to and take care of myself is a really important part of that. Yeah, I mean, that's always going to be a challenge, I think, in any kind of profession where you're caring for an individual, is trying to, you know, just empathize with that human experience and see someone that's having a difficult time.
Yeah, I think so too. I think when we see people as people, it makes a huge difference, not as an outcome we're trying to achieve. So let's get into just a few gems here for people as far as kind of up-leveling their counseling. So first off, what are some things, how do you work with someone, I guess, and this maybe ties in a little bit to the other, but how do you work with someone that you don't really want to work with? Because I know for me on occasion, there would be someone maybe in my dialysis unit, or I even had a couple of private clients on occasion. I'm just like, I kind of wish I didn't have to be helpful or in this situation. And how can you kind of switch that so that you are looking forward to helping people?
Yeah, that's a really good question. I've definitely dealt with that in my profession as well. In fact, not even that long ago, there was a parent that I was working with who was just really, she had really unreasonable expectations, and she was super persistent and demanding in, the outcome that she wanted. And I had that feeling too. It was like anytime I'd see her number come through on caller ID or get an email, I just kind of cringe, like, what do I do? But in those situations, I have found, kind of going back to that idea of how everyone has value, I tried to look for things in her that I thought she had strengths with. And I realized, oh, she's actually really good at getting what she wants. And I started to observe that quality in her, how she would go about it. And I learned to appreciate how well she advocated for her kids. And when I chose to focus on those positive things about her, even though there were still things that drove me crazy, it made it a lot easier for me to I guess, deal with her. And I think the other piece of any, working with any difficult person is, that piece of empathy, trying to put myself in their shoes. With that particular person, I remember thinking, gosh, she must be in a place of pain in her personal life and somewhere to treat someone else in this certain way. And when I started to see her in that way, I felt a lot more compassion towards her plight. And I've seen that, in students and clients that I've counseled, that a lot of times that emotion or the negativity that kind of hits us in the face when we're working with someone that's difficult, that's easy for that to be kind of like the forefront or the thing that we remember most about them. And I think when we can dig a little deeper and say, okay, what is the root cause of that negativity that's coming at me, we start to see them more as people rather than a problem in our daily life. And it makes it so much easier to feel like we want to help them. And I guess, dread less that contact that we're going to have with them.
Yeah, I think that's a good point. That's something definitely that I encountered as well. If there'd be someone that was hard for me to work with, maybe they're like wanted a meal plan every single week, even though I know they never used it, or they didn't even want to talk to me, and we really need to discuss XYZ. After a while, I just tried to figure out the piece, the point of pain for them, and be empathetic towards that, and maybe back off of my agenda just a little bit, and that tended to eventually help them open up. Can you tell us just a little bit, and I'm looking over here at my notes, you see me looking at the sides of my notes, can you tell us just a little bit about some of the counseling techniques, and maybe expand on how, as dietitians, we are hammered with motivational interviewing. That is like all we hear about. There's research on it. So we just are trained in motivational interviewing. And I thought that is all there was until you started helping me with some of my clients. But can you tell us just a little bit about other counseling techniques and maybe how you would use something different with tough patients?
Yeah, that's a good question. There's a lot of parts of motivational interviewing that I find are valuable. It's rooted in Carl Rogers and how he has kind of that positive regard for everybody. And that piece of it I like because, like I've already mentioned, I approach my counseling through the lens of everyone having value. The piece that I feel like sometimes it lacks is a clear direction of how to help somebody make a change. And in the counseling world, motivational interviewing is usually used for people that are dealing with substance abuse and that are really ambivalent in how they're going to, they know they need to make a change, but they don't feel like they can make a change, and they kind of have that battle all the time. And so hence the word motivational, right? That we're trying to get them to make a change. But there's so many other techniques and theories out there that go beyond, hey, I'm going to non-confrontationally, meet you where you are. There's, one of my favorite theories is cognitive behavioral therapy. And I like that one because that one teaches you how to adjust your mindset about something. So a lot of times our feelings drive our emotions, that drive our behaviors, and cognitive behavioral therapy, can teach people how to adjust their perception of something so that their emotions don't come out so clearly, so that their behaviors are different. And so there's some really clear techniques in that. Also, solution focused therapy is great because the focus is, like, the title says, it's on the solution rather. I would say the person's part of it, but it's looking at what has worked in the past and how that can help you further. So in dealing with difficult patients, I think it's especially important that you have a variety of tools in your back pocket to work with, because not one technique, and I see this all the time in my counseling, not one counseling technique works with everybody. I'm sure that you've all had patients you've dealt with that just simply do not do what you have asked them to do, right? And that's where motivational interviewing can kind of hit a roadblock sometimes, because they probably need some more prescriptive, directive ideas, concrete things that can help them move forward in their progress. And so definitely, with a difficult patient, you're going to want to kind of know what's something else that could work for this person. If they're not progressing in the goals that we've had, maybe there has to be more to it than just really appreciating who they are as a person, and asking certain questions that, we have to dive deeper into things like, and I know this is a part of motivational interviewing too, but like empathy. We all feel like, oh yeah, I get that person. I know what they're going through, but do we really? I think as people, we're slapped in the face first off with the negative emotion that comes through a difficult patient, and we react to that before we choose to use the tools that are at our disposal. So empathy, listening, body language, all those things that, I know you've heard about and probably talked about in motivational interviewing techniques have to be things that are really inherent in how we do our work, because otherwise we kind of get overwhelmed by the negativity of someone who's difficult, or our daily difficult life, or whatever else is in there that seems to affect our emotions and then hence our behaviors.
Yeah, no, I think that's a good point. When I was digging into the research just a little bit, it's interesting. The 3 other techniques that I'm seeing show up in the medical research for counseling are something to do with mindset. Solution-focused therapy actually has a good amount of literature, especially in heart failure. And I love solution-focused therapy because so much you're dealing with families, and solution-focused therapy is great for family relationships. And I have an extra hour bonus in the course that's coming up where we just talk about solution-focused therapy. I've taught it at a couple CRN groups. It's a really and then always motivational interviewing, but being able to expand our view and say, maybe it's not about asking the right question right now. Like maybe, questions are always important, but maybe it's something else. Maybe I'm not trying to scale this person on a scale of 1 to 10. Like, how likely are you going to want to boo? And then if you're not at a 10, why are you? Sometimes people need to come at things a different way, and they need to see you. I think we call it patient parallelism. You and I were talking about that, where you can see where they're at and you're on the same place with them so that you can know how you can kind of move them forward. One of the pieces that I know you've always brought me back to, and this is really how we formed out the course that we're going to do in a couple of weeks, is probably one of the first questions you ask me when I come up with a hard situation, is you ask me to analyze my relationship with them first before I can know what to do next. And I'm just wondering if you can give me some insight on why you feel like that's such a foundational piece beyond any other technique is relationship building.
Yeah, that's a good question. And, like you were saying, as we were developing this course, there's a lot of different ways that we could go with it. And particularly, I felt very impressed. Like, we've got to start with the relationship. And you're right. I always take things back to the start of the relationship because, honestly, think about it in your own life. Are you more apt to trust and listen to and follow the guidance of someone that you really know cares about you, or someone that is checking off a box to get you from point A to point B? And I've seen that in my work, once I have developed a solid relationship with a student or a parent or, a person that's in my office, we make such faster progress in whatever challenge we're trying to overcome. And they're more apt to listen to me because change is hard, right? I mean, if someone came to me and said, you need to stop eating chocolate, I'd be like, come on, like, I'm not going to do that if I don't trust you and know that that's for my health, or for my well-being. And same, when I'm working with people in relationships or with mental health, when they're having a hard time doing something that they know they have to do in their life, it's going to be hard for them to do it. And if they don't trust me first and know that I have their absolute well-being in mind when I ask them or present to them a hard solution, there's no way that they're going to make that effort to change. And so that's really where it starts. And there's a lot of things that are easy to gloss over when we're building our relationships. I know how it is. I get into the office in the morning and I do have like a long list of things that I need to take care of. And sometimes I just honestly don't feel like taking the time in the relationships that come through, across my desk. But without a doubt, when I do choose to take that time, and, for me, it is a priority in my profession of just doing the little things like seeing patient parallelism, seeing where they are when they come in. Are they in a happy place today? Are they in a frustrated place today? Do they feel motivated today? Like knowing how to ask the right questions so you know where your patient is coming from on the day they come in is absolutely critical to knowing how much work you can do with them. If they're frustrated, you might just have to do a tiny bit that day. If they're motivated, you might be able to jump a mile. But I think that's really critical. It makes your work more efficient when you understand your patients, and it helps them feel more motivation to make the change.
Yeah. Have you ever combined different counseling techniques within a session? So I'm thinking, if someone comes in and they're scheduled for an hour from 2 to 3 on Monday, or if they're dialysis, they come in, they have their session Monday, Wednesday, Friday for this amount of time to this amount of time. When they come in, I have to interact with them at the time that they come. And I just wonder if maybe you start, like how do you walk through this process? You start by building relationships, and that's what we're going to kind of dig into, build that foundation. And then maybe I use a little motivational interviewing. Maybe I use counseling, solution focused. But I don't know. Do you find that you kind of will switch between different counseling techniques as you're moving through like your time together to kind of get them to the right place for them?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, to me, when I look at the vast, I don't know, all the different counseling theories that exist, it's like they're each a bag of different types of tools. And so depending on what the issue is that's facing me might depend on which tool I grab for at that time. And I would say, certainly if you're out looking for a professional counselor, sometimes you're going to look for someone that uses a specific technique, right? Because certain techniques tend to lend themselves to certain problems better than others. But when you're working in a situation like, for me, I've worked a lot in schools, so my clientele is varied. It's more of like a triage situation, or for you as dietitians, it's a lot the same way. Like you kind of get what comes across your desk, and they're not coming to you for counseling per se as much as they're coming to because they've been mandated or they have a health issue, right, that they need to overcome. That you're going to want to have a variety of tools, and you absolutely should switch between them. I think most counselors that I know professionally, they kind of tend to lean towards a certain theory, but they like to use techniques from lots of different counseling ideas. And that's certainly my method too. I find value in almost all of the different counseling theories. It just depends on which tool I want to use at what time and what I think might work for the client that I'm working with at that time.
Cool. So a couple of kind of key takeaways from today, and a couple of things maybe we can summarize for everyone is I'd really love to know, first off, probably the top 2 things that you feel like make every relationship work, or make, how do I phrase this? Like, give you the capacity to help people make change. Like, top 2 things that you feel like puts you in a place where you can help someone. That's for the first question, and I have one more after this.
Okay, so first of all, I would say people need to feel like you are genuine. And I think being genuine is rooted in empathy. If they really get where you're coming from, it doesn't mean that you have to have walked in their shoes. Like, you might not know how it feels to be going through a divorce, or to have someone in your life with mental health, but you might know how it feels to be frustrated, or you might know how it feels to be angry. And I think when you can kind of relate back to, those things, people can really feel when you're genuine, right? You can tell when someone really cares about where you're coming from. So I would say that's the first thing. I would say secondly, in building a relationship, and this sort of goes along with that too, is knowing how to be a good listener. And I know for me, when I get busy, I have a checklist in front of me. Sometimes when someone's talking to me, I might be looking at my notes, or I might be distracted by something, but knowing how to look someone in the eye and them know that you are fully invested in what they are having to say at that moment, even if it's not interesting to you, they know that goes just leaps and bounds to building a relationship. And it takes a conscious effort often to set aside our distracting thoughts and our checklists in order to be able to do that.
Cool. Good listener doesn't mean you have to be a long listener. Doesn't mean you have to be there forever. If you have the right techniques, you actually will spend less. Sometimes you need less time. So I just make that. Sometimes I think a good listener is going to have to be here forever. I don't have time for that, but that's not. Good listening is not always about length. And then the last kind of a couple of key takeaways. Working with tough patients, relationship is key. That is a huge part of what we're going to be teaching as far as techniques in the course. But the other thing is, what are 3 ways for yourself that you maintain your sanity and you avoid burnout with counseling in a day-to-day situation? Maybe you start with something, people don't do it, but like that can be so discouraging. So what are 3 kind of good key takeaways of how we can avoid burnout as we're working with people on all sorts of hard issues?
Yeah, that's a really good question. I know when I started counseling, that was not something I had mastered yet, and I did start to feel that burnout. But in throughout the course of my career, there's a couple things that are absolutely critical. I would say number one, have a strong professional group of colleagues that relate to kind of what you're going through. I know sometimes when I've been dealing with difficult patients or difficult situations, it's helpful to be able to go to a group of colleagues and say, I have this patient that, does this and this, and maybe I'm frustrated with something. And it's so nice to have a professional group that can validate what you're going through, or that can say, oh yeah, that happened to me, or, that can help you kind of get through that. I think just that validation piece as a professional is really helpful. Secondly, I think it's important to focus on progress when we're in the middle of hardships, and we have a hard day. I don't know about you, but I go home just thinking about that hardship as I'm going home, and dwelling on an interaction or something that went poorly, and forgetting to look at what progress happened. I kind of laugh at myself that one of the folders that I have in my email is called Nice Emails, and I file nice emails that people have sent me where they say something that they were grateful for, or notice some kind of skill I had that helped them. And I kind of keep that folder there, so when I have a bad day, I can remember what things I've done right. And I can also remember the progress, because a lot of times those emails come from people that I've helped and have seen, great strides with. And so then you can remind yourself, like, that's why I do this job. This is why I love being a dietitian. This is why I love being a counselor, is because I'm helping people make progress. And that kind of puts life into, what you're dealing with that's hard on a day-to-day basis. And then the third thing, and I think this is most critical, it's kind of a buzzword in counseling, and you likely have heard it elsewhere too, but just self-care. What makes you feel good on a day-to-day basis, making sure you're taking care of your needs behind the scenes in your profession, because we all come to work every day, and oftentimes we're tired and we have things going on in our personal life, but are you taking time to do things that make you feel good, whether it's exercise or reading a book, or making sure you get sleep, or taking a hot bath, or whatever it is that makes you feel good about yourself. Just taking time to kind of connect with those things, I think, is so critical. When we have a full soul of joy, it's a lot easier to portray that happiness and care to others that are in our care.
Yeah. So I found that that's one of the best things I can do with my tough patients really is being able to, if I come in and I'm, I got little kids, I'm tired all the time, but if I come to something with at least the feeling of like things are going to be great, like we could work through this, they can feel that. And especially if I come in with an energy from, having done something good for myself, then that I do feel like reflects into their care as well, which is great.
Absolutely.
Cool. Well, Tyrene, thanks for coming on. And those of you who have joined us, we gave you just like the smallest little hint of things you can do to work with your hardest and toughest patients. And honestly, if you're feeling frustrated with them, sometimes the best thing to do is to back off of your agenda and to start with the relationship. And you will find that that drives so much of everything else. And if you're not sure how to do that, maybe you're wanting to make a little bit more progress with your counseling skills, then we would love for you to join us in the counseling course. We're running on August 3rd and August 5th, an hour each day. We have a solution-focused therapy piece as well, which has been really valuable for me in knowing how to navigate family situations and the food fights, I call them, that happen. So I know you can gain a lot of value from that as well. These are things that have helped me personally to really be able to love every day with my job and love those people that I work with. So join us there. I put the bit.ly link here and I'll drop it in the comments later as well. You can go sign up there. And definitely you're going to want to grab your seat by the end of next week. But go check it out. We'd love for you to join us, 3 CPEs as well. And we hope to see you there. Okay, thanks so much, everyone. Bye-bye.
Bye.